Hello everyone, Ashutosh here, and in today's video I will be reviewing one of Stanley Kubrick's best yet most controversial works, A Clockwork Orange, starring Malcolm Mcdowell in the lead role as Alexander Delage. And if you're even slightly acquainted with Stanley Kubrick's works, you may know that be it The Shining or Eyes Wide Shut, there is always a bit of sexualization involved. So obviously this name reflects that in some way. And before we get into the review, I just want to clarify that this movie has some intense and pretty disturbing nudity throughout the movie. So if you have any issues with that, this movie would definitely not be for you. Now you may consider it a weird fantasy or something reflective of the society we live in, and it's entirely up to you. I believe that Stanley Kubrick's works are the prime example of the two extremes that people judge his movies. On one hand, people disregard his movies completely based on the sexual stuff, violence, boring screenplay, slow build-up, etc. But on the other extreme, people love his works as even if they do have sexual and sometimes unsettling scenes, they're mostly reflective of the reality. So it can be deduced that Stanley Kubrick's works are definitely not recommended if you're looking for an escape from reality. On the contrary, it'll make you more traumatized than ever. So before any further ado, let's see what Clockwork Orange is all about. Clockwork Orange is very cruel, violent, sadistic at points. Other times it is satiric, clever, and even funny. Kubrick has created one of the most interesting movies ever done in the industry of cinema's difficult theses on violence, instinct, motivation, and it's completely filled with social and political messages. Alex, portrayed brilliantly by the highly talented actor Malcolm McDowell, is a charismatic and intelligent but a very brutal gang leader. He's a psychopath and we get no reason for what he does. He's not yet affected by the society and his parents seem very nice and calm. Alex wants to do the R word, beat and even kill people. He's not under circumstances of anything. He's just a perverse, ultra-violent teenager along with his droogs. The first half of the movie is ridiculously violent, somewhat uninteresting and boring as well. But it has to be that way in order to prepare the audience for the next part. Throughout the movie there is a somewhat tense and weird background music composed by Wendy Carlos, who has also composed the music for The Shining, and one of the tunes in the movie will definitely remind you of The Shining movie as well. And under this tense backdrop, we see Alex committing the most heinous of crimes, which, as I previously mentioned, can be considered a big no for normal moviegoers. These violent and unsettling scenes is one of the major reasons behind it being one of the most controversial movies of all time. The Clockwork Orange puts the former perpetrator Alex Delage in the place of his former victims, who are out for their revenge against him for crimes he committed against them in the past. Things turn sour very quickly and there is a dissension in the ranks because of Alex's brutality towards his weak followers, following which he gets arrested and eventually he gets selected for a government experiment named as Ludovico method. The Ludovico method is something created and incorporated in prisons by the government and not necessarily to cure the prisoners. There are political reasons that come into play, such as proving themselves to be effective, original, useful in their mandate. It is not very verified enough to assure the prisoner that they will adapt to the society again, given the presence of their victims and their desire for revenge. As we get to see Alex, no one really cares about his transformation, except, of course, the government. He is healed, redeemed, made to understand that violence is ugly and disgusting. But his re-entry into the society is as bad as it can be. His fight or flight instincts are zero. He can no longer strike back, becoming ill both physically and mentally. He feels increasingly sick at what he has seen and becomes quote-unquote cured. He becomes quote-unquote a clockwork orange, healthy and organic on the outside, but unhealthy and artificial on the inside due to a reflex mechanism beyond his control. After he is released from prison, Alex is defenseless against an old homeless man he assaulted, and his former partners in crime, Georgie Boy and Dim, are now ironically on the opposite side of the law. The moral of the story is not just what goes around comes around, but that sometimes the so-called victims are just as evil as the perpetrator. This is a great morality play with plenty of irony in it. A film definitely worth seeing. I've heard some critics complaining about the fact that Kubrick wants us to sympathize with Alex, but I did not feel that way watching his work. A Clockwork Orange is not that type of movie where the public has to understand and cry for a violent, non-conformist anti-hero. I think this movie wants us to look at the events from Alex's perspective, not to sympathize with him, but to think if he can be helped by the government and their methods. So yeah, that's my review and somewhat an analysis on the Clockwork Orange by Stanley Kubrick. Do let me know your thoughts as well in the comments. Please do like, share and subscribe to my channel for more such reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe and keep binging.